How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another episode of The Tactical Empire. I'm joined by Sean Ryder. How are you, man?
Yeah, I mean, the weather's getting warm and you don't like me bringing up the weather, but I bring it up because, of course, the AC unit gives way and they come out and they're like, oh, it's a coil, but you're still under warranty. So the coil under warranty is like $1,500, but it could take 2 months to get here. Or we can just do it and it'll be done sooner for $2,500. I'm like what warranty? I still have to pay for shit. And then you're going to charge me more because you have the coil outside of warranty. So that's the first maybe major bill for this house that we've lived in 4.5 years. So hopefully that is not the start to many bills for this house.
Oh, I don't know. 5 to 7 years. That's when shit starts breaking.
I know. I just said it to my wife the other week too. So it's that time. How are you guys? You're down in Florida, hopefully with nice skies and great adventures outside, hopefully.
Yeah, we just left our month-long quote-unquote family reunion of full-time families. And so we dispersed throughout the country for our travels. The way it kind of works is everybody hunkers down in the South for the winter so you don't freeze. And then everybody travels kind of from April to November. So everybody spreads out all over the country and then comes back to Arizona, Texas, Southern California, Florida.
Okay. So be it. Well, I'm excited. I know you're down in Florida. You're waiting anxiously for our meetup in 2 weeks. So we're excited. We've been planning it out. So I'm ready. Like I said, we only meet twice a year. So I think the guys have been getting that itch to get away and come on down. So I'm ready. I know you're ready. Hopefully the fellas are ready.
Yeah, it's going to be a great 2 days for sure, or 3 days, I guess. It's just such an important component to like these things. Yeah. Connecting with people in person and being able to create those relationships and deepen those relationships. And then also like strategize, brainstorm, get some of the answers or aha moments that you otherwise don't get when you're in your own little world and ecosystem.
Well, I know we've been harping on clarity, simplicity, focus. And the reason why we meet in person is to give the guys the time to disconnect and see where they've kind of gone off the beaten path. And one of the topics, this isn't rocket science and it isn't obviously something that we created, but I think it holds true because it just keeps getting brought up as we mentor business owners, as I start creating connections and relationships with other metabolic franchise owners as one of the businesses that I own in that space and trying to help them improve their businesses. What I'm finding is like some of these business owners are doing way too many things, even though those things may yield results. They try and do all of them. It kind of goes back to our philosophy with finances, like diversification. You need to diversify. You need to diversify. And it's like diversification isn't a wealth building tool. Diversification is a hedging tool. It is a maintenance tool that you use once you become said wealthy. Well, in the business space, like you have all these strategies, you have all these things and areas of business that you can focus on. But if you're cutting yourself thin and trying to do all the strategies, let's say within marketing or all the sales strategies or offer all the services or offer all the products, you're diversifying your attention, you're diversifying your time, and you're not going deep in any of those. And so what I'm getting at is the old 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your results in any given area are going to be yielded by only 20% of your actions. And my argument at the last meetup, my whole presentation was, what is that 20%? And turn that 20% into the 80%. So what is your view on the 80-20 rule. How do you keep yourself in that guardrail? How have you implemented it? How often do you look at the tasks that you're doing in any given area? So let's just kind of talk on that today and see if that can help some business owners and investors dial things and narrow the focus for them.
Yeah, I'm really, really guilty of doing this. I've always had two or three things going at any given time. And so, I mean, it's not always the best thing to do. Um, like narrowly focusing on your primary source of income, like for example, is very important because like, are you showing up the best you possibly could, or are you spending 3 hours doing something else for some other company so you can make a couple $100 when you should be running like paid ads and dialing in your systems and processes in your primary business, because over time the long tail effect of spending that time in the thing that you actually own outright is going to produce a much longer and more lucrative response for you. And I think people get short-sighted in doing that, and it comes out of like some sort of scarcity. It's also maybe that people believe that they have more capacity than they truly do. So it really does it. It comes from a place of being able to be really honest with yourself, because like if you can identify your gaps and your holes, like great. If you can delegate and be CEO truly, or be like a board member on a business you own, work yourself up to that position, then you can do multiple things. um, but I mean, if you're starting this fledgling business and it's like under 2 years old and it's kind of producing results, this is what I see more than anything, is that people start making money and then they're making okay money with their business, but they really could take it like 5x more. But instead, they shift focus to these other things and start like part timing, hobbying, doing other things. And their business just kind of stagnates at that level. And then 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the road, they're like, this fucking sucks, man. Like this thing's only producing whatever, 300, 400, 500 gross a year, which gives me what, 50, 70, 120 a year. But at the end, it's like diminishing returns, because when you were on the gas, you probably could have blown through that 500,000 and taken it to 1,200,000, to where you would have been making 300, 400,000. And it's the only thing you would have needed to do if you stayed focused on that. So I think there's a lot of honesty and clarity that comes from like identifying where you could be spending your time.
Yeah.
And that's not easy to do personally. It's a lot easier to do when someone like me comes in and looks at your business from outside and says, well, of course, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, and you're not doing that. Why? Oh, because I'm over here doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you're leaving so much meat on the bone on that particular opportunity. Like it would behoove you to just kind of spend 10 more hours a week getting this thing going, because if you did that for 3 months, you wouldn't have to spend those 10 hours anymore, and you would make twice the money.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the case for some people, but it wouldn't take someone very long if they had a conversation with you or I to see that you and I are dabbling in a few things. So I'm going to come at it from a slightly different angle, and it's not necessarily 80-20 for your projects. I'm going to say it's 80-20 for your skill set and your strength zone, your unique ability, whatever term you want to use for it. I'm perfectly fine with building a brick and mortar business, building the Tactical Empire online business, having real estate. But what I've had to do as I've kind of created these projects, I've actually had to reduce the amount of things that I'm doing within those projects. So I've had to go deeper on what my skill set is. And so I think we can, people like you and I can have 2, 3, 4 things, but you can't do multiple things in those things. You should be doing the one thing that you're the best at. And even though I've had this real estate portfolio, if you've listened to other episodes, you know I'm kind of condensing it, and then I'm going to take equity and move it into these other partnerships. And these other partnerships, I am 100% hands off with, so I can continue, because my skill set isn't to go find the deals. My skill set isn't to deal with tenants. My skill set isn't to fix this or coordinate this. That's not what my skill set is. But that doesn't mean I remove myself completely from real estate. But I need to convert equity from things that still have me slightly involved to real estate that has me full hands off. So then I can focus on my skill set of content creation, marketing, and sales. That's literally my and education coaching, right? Depending on which business you're talking about. I'm a teacher at heart. So I can consume content, I can create content, I can present content really, really well in written form and verbal. That is, and it's taken me 13 years to realize this. Like I knew I was good at that, but then I tried to become good at things that I'm actually not good at and I don't have passion for, and I'm not willing to dedicate the time to get good at those things. So whereas like I kind of went on this learn as much as I can, do as much as I can, I'm now coming down that mountain and like honing in on, Sean, this is your strength. Now I can implement that strength across 3 different projects and utilize my time appropriately and move all of those to the highest of heights is my hope for that. Now, what that has required is heavy financial investments in other people within those businesses. And I think that's what hangs up a lot of business owners and investors is they're not willing to make that investment. And I think this quote, this time around, this go around that I'm having with the 2 businesses that I'm highly focused on right now, is I wasn't willing to sacrifice my time, but that required me to not skimp on the money side, if that makes sense. So if you're like Jeff and I,
100%.
yeah, if you're like Jeff and I think you can have 2 or 3 things going on, but you got to stay within your zone.
Well, and I think you got to go in with a healthy dose of reality. Like a lot of the business owners, they allow their lifestyle to creep to the point where their family needs a certain amount of money, and at the end of the day, guys, like businesses take reinvestment for a long time to pay that that investment off long term. It
Yep.
truly, and so like if you're not it, well, if you're not going in understanding, like a lot of people choke out their business by drawing a bunch of the cash out of the business early on in the first 3 years, and like if you don't look at it as like an investment that you're building this thing that's going to pay you into perpetuity, like a lot of people look at it like a job. Like how much money can I siphon off of this job? And so to be fair, I think you and I are coming at it from a point of maturity. You're in your whatever level of business ownership, having bought and sold different businesses, bought and closed different businesses. Now you're coming at it from a perspective of like you don't have an expectation that it's like 7 figures of take home in the first year. Like I think you go into business with these rose colored glasses, like look at all this money that's coming in, and then you try to take it all for yourself, not understanding that like the business needs fed and not starved out so that you can eke off the back half of the like 20% of the profit. And that's where people get hung up because they pay themselves a salary and then they expect there to be profits too. Like if you come in with a level head and you're like, hey, I'm gonna do some profit distributions quarterly if there's something left over for me. If you have the capacity to work like that, you can be very successful in business because then you're rolling it back in each and every year, creating a better and better product, delivering more and more value. And 5 years down the road, you're going to make more money than you even thought this thing could produce.
Yeah. Not to change topics because I think this is going to relate heavily for some people. It's capitalizing a business both with money and time, and it's the same thing with infinite banking. The creator of the infinite banking concept, Nelson Nash, would say this. He goes, "You have to capitalize policies." Now, the good thing about nowadays, as opposed to the 1980s, is there's actually high early cash value life insurance now. So the capitalization percentage happens way more rapidly. But what he talked about was you have to build your bank, and that takes time. And businesses are the same way, which is why the infinite banking concept relates, like business owners catch on to it very quickly because they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Whereas your normal person is, hey, no, I want to put money in something and make 8% right now
This year.
this year in perpetuity. Whereas I think business owners have a little bit of that delayed gratification. That may go against what you just said about them siphoning money off. And this is the maturity of businesses. And this is what I'm seeing with other franchisee owners. I ask them, is this your first business? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, that explains why you're thinking this way. That explains why you're talking this way. That explains why you're trying to implement the entire playbook at one time. Whereas I'm telling you, find the one part and the one strategy in this playbook and just crush that for 90 days, which is why I've done a huge deep dive in traction over the past 90 days. I've read it 4 times, but like this 4th time, it's just like, it is hitting the nail on the head for me. And it's taken me 4 reads over 7 years to get to this point. And I'm like, fuck, it's like a light bulb moment. Like, yeah, I can only focus on 1 to 3 things this quarter, and it's got to be in my wheelhouse. And that's how we're going to grow these things. So it goes back to the 80-20. What are the 20% of actions that and we're talking about you personally, as a business owner investor, what are the 20% of actions that you can take that fall within your strength zone, that make you money, that wake you up and fire you up and are in your passion? This goes back to Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. All of these books connect to one another. It's like a web of success between these authors. And it all comes down to simple fucking principles. And this simple principle today that we presented is the 80-20 rule. If you don't know the 20% of things that are yielding 80% of results, you gotta dig deep and find it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most people are trying to do too much, and they're stepping over dollars to pick up nickels, and trying to force themselves into roles that don't suit them either. And they don't really
Right.
understand the time value of things. And so it's really important to get clear on what you're good at and what skills you can bring to the table, and then like delegate everything else or contract for it to be done. So then you can move further faster. But the time horizon still has to be a long-term outlook on things. I mean, I would say that, like, if you understand how much these things are going to pay you in 20 years, that's the same thing as life insurance. Like, you're not trying to get the 2-year return, but if you look down the road in 15 years on where things will be, like, then you understand the benefits of both business and infinite banking for sure. So
Think
yeah,
think long
thanks,
range.
Sean.
Think long range. And I think I'm gonna pull a quote from the other podcast last week is boring. Thinking long range is boring. Doing 20% of the things that you think you're capable of doing is boring, but the boring shit is what will make you and those around you successful. So that is the topic for today. Jeff, add anything if you want. If not, send the people out on that one.
Guys, join us on Facebook. We have the Tactical Empire community. Follow us on all the channels at the Tactical Empire. You can shoot Sean or I a message at Instagram. Let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help. Or if you're interested in hopping into our accelerator program, we are taking clients now. So if you want us to help you build your 7 levels of financial freedom, or your business, or whatever you're working on currently, if you want to maximize your results over the next 90 days, hit us up. We are about to roll into Q2. So talk soon. Have a great week. Kick ass.